1 minute. All right, so yesterday I had introduced this concept just to explain. I think we're using Bemisola's store to explain that. Also good to know that Kyle is also working on certain tasks related to what we have learned. Also, it's good keep applying them, keep looking at for ways to apply what we are talking about in class. It helps you to solidify the knowledge. All right, and this knowledge once gotten, you will most probably never have any need to, you won't lose them. That's just what I'm trying to say. So we have three tables here: customer table, the products table, and the orders table. And then on the orders table, the only thing we need from we just need the product ID and the customer ID. Why? Because with the product ID, we're able to retrieve other information about the product from the products table. From the customer ID, we're able to retrieve other information about the customer from the customer table, all right? And on and on. So lookup functions helps us to retrieve all of these details from the various tables where we found them, where they are currently housed. And in Excel, we say there are a number of them: the VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, and the XLOOKUP. Now, the VLOOKUP, I mean, that is vertical lookup, will search or base their search criteria by column, that's column wise, okay? While the HLOOKUP would search based on the rows. Yesterday, we were able to see the VLOOKUP. Today, we'll look at HLOOKUP, and then XLOOKUP does not really care about the direction. So X is for either vertical or horizontal. It means that XLOOKUP can actually do more. It's an extended version of the lookup functions that we currently have, and it is only available on the recent versions of Excel and Office 365 for those who are using that version as well. Okay, so we're going to take a look right now at HLOOKUP, and we'll see how that differs from VLOOKUP, and then we'll move straight to XLOOKUP. Let me quickly share the screen. So this is the file that we started working with yesterday, and we're just going to proceed from here. All right, we're going to proceed from here. So that's about VLOOKUP. We said you start a function, of course, it's the equal sign, and then once you start typing the VLOOKUP, it first requires you to enter the lookup value. The lookup value is that value you're trying to search. So in this case, in our example here, we're trying to search for the full name. That is our lookup value. And then the lookup array is where would we search for this value that you are asking us to search for, right? In this case here, we have a column called full name or title full name. So that is where we want to search this from. But because of the structure of this formula, we would also require what do we return when we find this name, okay? If I find this person, what information are you looking for about this person? We scroll down, this one we're interested in their email address. We copy or we select from the lookup array, right? From the lookup array down to the point of what we need to return. That is the value we need to return. All right, and we're taking note of the count at the base, the right bottom right of our selection. It is telling us how many rows and columns we have selected, because we're going to need that column number to appropriately point to the email column that we're interested in retrieving. Right, then comma will say is on column 9. Column 9 is simply the column that holds the email that we want to return. And the next thing after a comma is, do you want an approximate match or an exact match? Most of the times you need an exact match, right? And then once you press enter, it retrieves the email address that belongs to this guy called Dwight Shrug on our table. All right. We also saw how we could do that if you want to retrieve other information about this person. And I think, was it Aurel Fair or Hadassah, one of you had asked, can we retrieve more than one value at the same time using this lookup function? And I said, no, you can only retrieve one value per time using VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP. But when we see the XLOOKUP, we'll see how we can retrieve multiple values at the same time using the XLOOKUP. All right, so that's that for summary concerning what we did yesterday. So I would use this same analogy, but I would use that to, let's talk about the V is vertical. Why is it vertical? Our search starts in your selection. All right, your lookup array must be the leftmost column in your selection. But when it comes to HLOOKUP is not going to go through a column in this way. It is going to go through a row. All right, this is what I mean. So that same table that we saw up there, let me do it. That same table that we saw up there, I just inverted that table. All right. So remember we had employee ID, first name, last name, full name, age, all the way. So I just inverted that table here. All right. I'm only extracting employee ID, first name, last name, full name, and age. Every other information here, it's still the same thing with this table here. I just inverted the table. And in case you're wondering, how can you invert a table in this format? There's a function here in Excel called transpose. I mean, it's not necessarily a function, but something you can use to transpose your table, right? So employee ID, first name, last name, full name, and age. This is employee ID, first name, last name, full name, and age. I'm selecting all of them. I copy them. I've selected this entire one. You can add more if you want. Maybe let's extend it up to gender. All right, let's extend it up to the gender. Now, what I will do next is at the point where I want to paste them, I'll just right click. So instead of my usual paste cut, which is what's it called? The shortcut, which is Control V, I'll right click instead and I'll see more paste options here. All right, there are several paste options, but the one I'm interested in, if you hover on this one, it is called transpose. All right, it is called transpose. So I'll just click on that one. What that does is it would invert the rows to become the columns and the columns to become the rows. That's what transpose does. So the information or the data is still the same, but just inverts their presentation. All right, that's what we have here. To talk about the H lookup, let's see. So I have these employee IDs here. Let me add gender here. I have these employee IDs here. Okay, I have these employee IDs. I want to retrieve what their full names are, what their ages are, as well as their gender. So I'm using HLOOKUP this time, horizontal HLOOKUP. So I type again, HLOOKUP. The first thing, just like VLOOKUP, is what is the lookup array? I'm using the employee ID as my lookup value rather, not array. Then what is the table array? Again, just like VLOOKUP, ensure that the topmost row is your lookup array. Your lookup array is at the topmost row. That is where it is going to search for that value from. So take note. On to where we have the full name, and I'll copy it all the way to the side, right? This time around, we're looking at the rows, not columns, right? So I put a comma, then say what is the row index? VLOOKUP, we had what is the column index. Here is the row index. So on what row is the value that we want to return? And as a matter of fact, I think we have mixed out the row. Wanted to return the full name. So that is on what row in our selection. This is row 1, row 2, row 3, and row 4. An exact match again. So you just press enter and it gives you Dream Helper. So just like yesterday, remember I said we can lock our selections so that as we copy our formulas, it doesn't move with our formulas. Okay. As we copy, we just lock this our selection. We want it to be in place. We don't want it to move out of position. Okay. And how do we lock that? Select that range that you want to lock or that cell that you want to lock and press F4 on your keyboard. If F4 does not work for you, you may want to use your function key and F4. So function F4 on your keyboard. That will also produce that. Or just go ahead and type $sign in front of both the column and row values as you see here. Right, so I press enter and then I can drag our formula all the way down and it's going to also give us the appropriate values for each of these other entries here. So the same thing, if you want to do the same for age, I do a H lookup. I want to search for the lookup value is the ID, and I'm going to search through the entire one, get down to where we have the row, the age row. All right, this time around is on row 5, and I also need an exact match. So it tells us this guy's age here according to the table. Instead, I'll lock these cells again. I'll lock the cells again. And finally, I will do the same for the gender, employee ID. Right, down here we have the gender, select the entire item on the table, and this time around is on row 6, exact match, and then it gives us the gender. I'll lock the cells again, and then I can drag all the way here, and voila, the same working system. All right, the same expression. Do we have any question? Do we have any question? I'll pause so that you can
No,
assimilate that.
yeah, too fast. In fact, I was lost after a while.
Okay, I mean, it's still the same thing we did with VLOOKUP, but just to understand that instead of row or instead of columns, we have rows this time, all right? Nothing different from what we did with the VLOOKUP. The only difference is VLOOKUP, we're considering it as a column, and HLOOKUP is searching via your rows. Still the same thing. Okay, let me bring out the formula. Maybe it can be a bit clearer, just like we usually would do. So I'll get this formula here. I'll just paste it here. And, all right. If you use this, let me see. B what? Is it B24? Okay, it's B20. Okay, yeah, cool. All right. So this is your formula H lookup. I mean, compare it with, all right, compare both of them, and you will see they are very similar, okay, in their expression, very similar in their expression. Right? Very similar in the expression. Somebody may ask, what if we do an approximate match? What approximate match does is, even if it doesn't find it in the exact form, if you can give me something that is closest to what I'm searching for, all right, that is very useful for when you want to search for certain values from your table or tables. You want to search for certain values that you're not very sure of, right? So you have a value, but you're not sure what it is represented as in the table, right? So maybe um, the only thing I have is I have the name Chris, or maybe on my table instead of Chris, it is Christopher. So if I'm using exact match, it is not going to find Chris. But if I use approximate match, it is going to give me Christopher because there is an estimation, there's an approximation. You can find some similarities between Chris and Christopher, right? If you're not too sure, you can use that and then you can filter through the result to get what you're looking for, all right? But the exact match is what you will most probably use most of the time because you actually need the exact result, not something approximate. Not something approximate. Is that taken? Is that okay? I'm pausing so that we can also catch up from our own end. Any question? Any question? All right. Again, when we're quiet and silent, it means I can move on. That's what I assume. If there are no questions, I can move on to X lookup now. Okay, let me start is clear. All right, so let's look at the X lookup. All right, let's look at the X lookup. So you go to the sheet that has X lookup. The sheet that has X lookup. Let me also zoom in so that I can see better. So the same data set, that's what we're using, all right? And I'll start with a similar example to what we just did with VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, okay? Or doing VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. So this is XLOOKUP, and we'll just see the variation. Now, I'm sure when I finish explaining XLOOKUP or when I finish introducing XLOOKUP, you will fall in love with XLOOKUP and you may not even want to have anything to do with V or H lookup anymore. Okay. However, even in my work today, I still have need for V lookups and H lookups. Sometimes there are some cases where there's something I'm looking out for that I can only get when I use the V or H lookup, not X lookup. Okay. But the X lookup is very, very flexible to use, all right, and produces even a faster result because you can use it to retrieve multiple values at the same time. It is stressful to, you see the way we retrieved we retrieve full name, age, and gender, and we had to do them separately. All right, we had to do them separately. You know, is stressful to do it on a very large scale data when you know you have limited time to turn in an analysis or a report and stuff. Okay, that's where the XLOOKUP comes in very handy. It helps you to flip your task in a faster manner. Okay, so this is the XLOOKUP. Again, we just start equal to XLOOKUP, right? Now, just like every other lookup value, every other lookup functions we've seen, it also requires you to enter the lookup value first. So we enter the lookup value. We want to search for the first full name here. And then what's the lookup array? Unlike VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, where you need to select both the lookup array down to your result array, here you only need to select the lookup array. So where are we searching the full name from? We're searching the full name from this full name column, and that's all we need as a lookup array. The next thing is, what is the return array? The return array is what do you want to return? In this case, we want to return the email. So we come here and select that separately. So we are not selecting everything until we get to the email. We only select the particular array we want to return. If it finds the name here, it should return the appropriate email address on that particular row where it found it. Now, these are some additions that what is it called? The VLOOKUP does not have. This says if not found. Now, whenever you see in your Excel formula and you see something in square brackets, it simply means they are optional. It means you can either enter a value there or not. Okay? If you choose not to enter a value, there is a default that Excel is going to have there. That is what you will see. All right. So, but here, if not found, that is, if we don't find this name, what do you want us to show? In your VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, you don't have this privilege. If a value is not found in VLOOKUP, what you're going to see is NA, that is not available, right? As a matter of fact, I'm going to even pause here. Let me show you that quickly so you see what I mean. Let me get back to our VLOOKUP section. Right. So say, for instance, I said, look for this guy, this employee ID 1001, and it searches through and it doesn't find it. Did you observe what happens here to the value section? All you will see are NAs. NA simply means not available. That is what you're searching for is not available. That's basically what it is. All right, you will see it like an error, the NA error, that is the value you're searching for is not available. All right, but in your XLOOKUP, let me come back here. In your XLOOKUP, you have the privilege to choose what kind of result you want to see if that value is not found. This is what I mean. If it does not find the value we are searching for, all right, instead of putting NAs, just tell me value not found. So I can customize what the result that I want to see there instead. And then just like before, you will now choose whether you want an exact match and other options. So you see 0 for exact match, -1 for exact match or next smaller item, 1 for exact match or next larger item, 2 for wildcard character match. I'll explain what those other options will do for us. But right now, what we need is an exact match, which is a 0. So we can go ahead and enter. And you will see it produces the email address for this client we are searching in our table. All right. And just like before, we're going to lock our arrays so that they are in place and not moving around. Okay, as we replicate the formula all the way to the other entries. I'll pause here, ask me a question. Any question? And if you're good, just give me a thumbs up. If you're good, give me a thumbs up.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please, Chris.
Okay, thank you. I want to really know the essence of this lookup in general. But I was thinking, um, since the lookup is meant to provide maybe if you are looking for something, just go through the whole table and putting it there. Why not? What if we do copy and paste? Just go through the table, copy it, and just paste it there. I don't know. I want to
Hmm.
know the full concept of why the lookup is. Since we can easily
Okay.
just do copy, just copy the email and go to the place we want and just paste it.
Abi, and I like that thought. Very, very good question. Just copy it and paste it. That makes a lot of sense. All right. Until you are working with a data set that has 1 million records, okay, and you're searching for values of 1 million entries. You don't know whether those values even exist in your table. This is what I mean. I gave you an illustration of a store that has three tables: the customer information table, product information table, and your sales table, that is your order table. Now, you as the analyst, you have access to these three tables, but your analysis is on the sales table, that is orders table. You want to calculate revenues, you want to calculate profits or losses, you want to check the regions that are doing the highest sales, you want to check which product is doing more sales, you want to check which customer is doing more sales. But all your order table contains is your customer ID. It doesn't contain any other information about the customer. It doesn't contain only the product ID. It doesn't contain any other information about the product. So for you to find out those information you are looking for, you have to do a lookup to these other tables to retrieve those values. But you know, it is not all the customers that are in your customer table that are in your orders table. It's not every customer you have that have placed an order in that month. All right. You have a handful of customers that have placed orders compared to your total customers. You also know that it's not all products that have been sold, right? There are products that were sold and they were sold in different quantities and capacities and all of that. So your lookup functions helps you to retrieve those details that you need from those other tables and bring them into your order table, preparing your data for the analysis you want to carry out. Your analysis is, I want to find revenue. You know that in your order table, you only saw that a certain customer placed an order for a certain product and they ask for so quantity of that product. You don't know the price of the product from the order table. You don't know the cost of that product to the business. How are you going to calculate the cost to the business, overall cost to the business, and the revenue made from that order? You will have to retrieve those information, the price and the cost information from the product table. Do you understand? So we are using this very simple table here for illustration. When we start off with the real project, you will find out that we are dealing with large volumes of data, a larger volume of data that you're not going to be doing copy and paste. So if you have 1 million orders to sort, are you going to be searching for which order is here and the information that is on the customer table, and then you bring it and you paste it, then you go to the next order? You will stay for the next 1 year and you're not done with one task. And they look at you like, I don't understand. We could have gone back to Stone Age and do things manually. No, this one helps you to retrieve information faster. It's a very dynamic way of working. All right. Your copy and paste, I mean, you're looking at this data set, you can count them. Oh, I have just 9 records here. You can count them. If you see, if I give you a data set of 1 million rows, right? You don't know all the customers in that team. You can't know all of them. You can't know all the details. There are 1 million. And out of 1 million, maybe there are maybe 22 or 50 columns rather. So you can do the maths and you see how large your data set is. You will not be thinking of copy and paste in that instance. All right, because what you're doing, you're bringing in a lot of data. You're cross-matching a lot of data. All right, copy and paste is very manual, very laborious. all right, are not efficient at all for tasks like this. And again, the beauty of it all is that I'm using very simple cases here to introduce the concept. When we start off with the hands-on project, you will see the implementation of those, and you'll find out why we really need to use all of these lookup functions when we need to use the lookup functions. All right, is that okay, Chris?
Yes, please. Thank you.
You're welcome. I mean, you could easily do a control find, that is control F, and find what you're looking for, and then replace it or paste it and all of that. But I mean, you're working in a very manual way and so inefficient because you're dealing with one record per time. So if you have 1 million of those records to do, you know what that means. Okay, this helps you to retrieve those records at once just with a click of a button and everything is sorted. All right. So I would copy this formula out so that we see it again here before I explain further the other things that are there. All right. So again, here is our formula that we are using for X lookup. All right. The lookup value always the lookup value. Let me see if I can use. Yeah, okay. I mean, Stella has been struggling with a network. So Stella and another person is struggling with a network. Please, as much as you can, maybe change location, change providers, and if that does not work, then maybe you rely on the recording later. But as much as you can, try to listen in, all right, and also take notes where you can. If there are any parts that you miss, then you wait for the recording and use the recording to, catch up with it. All right. So I'm trying to get this. All right. So we have this guy is our lookup value always. Then let me use a different color. This guy is our lookup array. Yes, it's oh no. Okay. Our lookup array, right? And this guy is our what's it called? Is our result array. Okay, this is our result array. Take note of that. That is one of the major differences between the X lookup and other lookup. That's the V lookup and H lookup. All right. Here you need to specify your lookup value as usual, right? That's one. Then two is you specify where do we get this? Where do we look up this value from? Then what result should we return? Unlike the VLOOKUP or HLOOKUP, where you take note of the column or the row number where that result is, and you specify that. Then the next thing is, what should we say when we don't find this value? You can say value not found, or you can say something else, or you can leave it empty. That is, you just put a comma and leave it empty. Yeah. When you do that, what happens is that it is going to also do the same thing that you saw with XLOOKUP, all right, with XLOOKUP and with HLOOKUP and VLOOKUP. You're just going to see any that is not available. If you don't specify a default value, you're going to see any. Okay, let's take note of those differences. All right. Any questions so far? Right. So, just like I mentioned earlier, there are other things about this. This is what I mean by you can leave this empty. Look, guys, I'm going to clear off this value not found here. So you can see that I put a comma. It expects me to enter value for if not found. I left it as empty, right? And the match mode is 0. There is another search mode, which is also optional as well for you to add, right? You have several search modes. Search first to last, or last to first, or use a binary search, all right, as in ascending order or in descending order. Those ones They are not very important right now. They're only going to help with the speed of your search. So you have a very large volume of data, and if you use a binary search, okay, it sorts it out faster. It just returns a faster result. You may not even notice the difference when you use them. All right, but in software engineering, there is something known as code optimization. Okay, so generally the time it takes, the time complexity that it takes to execute an action is recorded for every action. Okay, so you may not even notice the difference where is what is faster, what is not faster, and all of that. That's just what I'm trying to say. But these are options that are available for us to use. All right. All right. So I said we can use the X lookup to return more than one value. Okay, more than one value. So let's say I want to return, there's nothing here on the address column. Let me just delete it. So let's say I want to return, again, good. I just did something now. It reminded me of something we all need to take note of. Observe that I deleted a column here, the address column. I just deleted it. I deleted the address column. All right. And it did not affect anything here. Look at this. I've deleted the address column. I didn't hide, I deleted it. And it didn't affect anything here. Let's get to VLOOKUP, and you will see something. Sorry. Let me clear. What promise. So look at VLOOKUP here. Here. All right. Take note. This we got these guys via VLOOKUP, right? Let's see something that happens. If I delete this address column here, now take a look here. It has affected our formula already here. Why? Because our initial selection would have been altered because we deleted a column. All right, that's one of the limitations of VLOOKUP and even HLOOKUP. Okay, once you alter the structure of your table, it affects the result of your lookup. All right, once you alter that, it affects it. But with XLOOKUP, it doesn't. No matter what you do to the table, it doesn't affect the results. Okay, take note of that. So I want to retrieve age, gender, job title, salary. All right, I want to retrieve age, gender, job title. I need to add an additional column here. All right. Right. And then maybe I want to change the positioning of this email. Let it come here. So observe everything I'm doing right now, nothing, it doesn't affect my results, my initial results here, right? It just automatically updates that your formula there to take the new position if you have realigned your tables in any ways. Okay, so XLOOKUP is very, very flexible to use. It's not as rigid as VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. Right. So I want to retrieve all this information once I find this guy's name here. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. So let me take all these column headers here because those are the ones that I want to retrieve. So age, gender, job title, salary, and the email. Okay. So I write the formula again. X lookup. Then what is the lookup value? Is the name here. What's the lookup array? Then you select the lookup array. Then what's the return array or the result array? The result array is, we say, age to email. So we'll select everything we want to return. Just in doing this, make sure you have enough room to contain the results you want to enter. I added some columns so that it can accommodate the results that I want to retrieve. All right. And then if it is not found, I'll just say leave it empty. Just give me the default and I'll say exact match and I'll say enter. So observe what happens here, right? Who asked that question yesterday? Who asked the question yesterday again? Who was it that asked the question? Was it Bemisola or Re? Who asked that question yesterday? I've forgotten who now. I think it's Ore Ulu that asked that question. All right. So you can retrieve multiple records at the same time. Okay. So just as before, I'm going to look up arrays so that they are in place. And then when I replicate the formula downwards, you'll see just with one lookup function, we're able to retrieve all this information about this person. All right. Isn't that easier and faster to work with compared to having to do them all over again? You want to retrieve salary and all that, you do it over again. One formula, one time, and you're good. Okay. Now, you would observe something that when I clicked here, if I click inside this gender cell, right, for Toby Flenderson,
Hello, please.
look at,
Please, can you come again with this lookup option, like the different roles, age, gender? I think I missed that.
okay, I'll do that shortly.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I'll go right again for any one of us that needs the explanation. So let me clear off everything. So I'll do it again. All right. So look at our initial formula here. We said lookup value, lookup array, return array, that's the result array, the value if not found, and the search mode. That is the whether it's exact or not exact. Okay. But here we want to retrieve all this information at the same time. So we write the same pattern. X lookup, what is your lookup value? Select it. Once your lookup array is on this full name column, what is your return array? Now on the return array, that's where we're making the modification. Instead of picking just one item, you have to select everything you want to return. All right. Similar to what we did with VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, but this time around, what we are saying is that return all these values when you find that name, return the corresponding values, all these corresponding values for that particular name where you find it. Every other thing remains the same. If not found, just tell us value not found. All right, take note that value not found in quotes. And then do an exact match. And then I just press enter. The only difference between what we have done earlier and what is here right now is we extended the return array to cover all the other columns we want to return. Is that okay? And then when I drag this formula down, by the way, I need to have locked our cells here so that they're in place. Right. And then when you do that, you'll get this result. Is it clearer?
Yes, sir,
Is it
it's
clearer now?
clearer. It's clearer.
Okay. Okay,
Thank
cool.
you.
Do
Hello,
we have any other?
Sally. I have a
Yes,
question.
please. Yes, please.
Did you paste or immediately you drag to the last whatever, it just entered automatically or you
Yes, it
pasted?
enter automatically. It enter automatically. So, like I told us initially, look at this. This is Excel. Okay. If you write your formula on a cell, you just replicate that formula throughout the entire cells that you want them replicated. What that means is, you see this bottom right here of this cell that I'm selecting here, right? Once I hover my mouse down here, the cursor changes to a black cross. If I'm outside of it, the cursor is this way. All right. If I'm here, the cursor is this. So observe, I think I said this on our first class also, where as your cursor is changing, understand what it means. So if your cursor is this way, it simply means that you can only select the cells. That's what that cursor symbol is. If you have a white fat cross, it means you can only select the cells when you click and move them around. if you have this, if your cursor is this way, where you have pointed cross, all right, you have a slim pointed cross, it means you can move that cell. So if I click here and I move down, it's going to move the value that was there. You see, it's asking me if I want to move that value to somewhere and replace it. Right? Let's say I move it to an empty cell, right? I've moved it. So you are moving what is there with that cursor um, once it is in this way with directional arrows. All right. If you point it at the right bottom of that cell that you want to replicate the formula, it will just turn to a black cross. That black cross means that you can drag it, and what would copy down will be the formula. The formula is the one that is being copied. So I click on it and I drag it down. That's what I did. Alternatively, once you are there, because you can have, like I said, you can have 1 million rows. You will not be clicking and dragging up to 1 million rows. So all you just do here is double click on it, right? Once you double click on it, it will automatically, let me take off this ones here. So I've written the formula here and I want it all the way down. You just double click on it and okay, because I've altered my work. That is why this is behaving in this way. But once you double click on it, it should replicate the formula all the way downwards to the end of that on the row that it has a value. All right, is that okay now? Is that okay? Give me a thumbs up if we're good. Thumbs up if we're good. Thumbs up if we're good.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Yes, I'm still having issue with this locking. When you lock some of the area, I don't still understand, sir.
Okay. To
Thank
lock
you.
it. Okay, let me make it a bit clearer. All right. Let me take a portion of. Okay, I think I'll do this. Let me take this salary and paste them here. All right. And I can call this someone and replicate all these other ones down here up to some 9. Okay. So observe something here. Um, this is equal to sum. I'm using this to explain this locking I'm referring to. So I want to sum everything here. All right. And I said enter. This is the value. Let me give them a numerical value. Okay, cool. Solar is good. Now, this is the sum of everything here, okay? Now, let's say I want to replicate this formula for all of them. I have not locked the cells. Observe what is happening. Observe what is going on. If I click on this cell, I click inside the formula bar. Look at my formula bar here, okay? And I click inside the formula bar, it will highlight the cells that that function is acting on. So observe what is selected. It's selected everything, yeah? Now look at the next one. Look at what is selected. Tosin, come on the mic. Talk to me. Are you looking at my screen?
Yes, I am.
Now, what are you observing in the second step here? What are you observing?
Okay, I observe it only pick from the second one to the last one.
So your selection now have started from here, and see, it has
Yes.
gone down. It has
To
added.
for yes,
Do you understand?
another cell.
Exactly. So look at the next one. What can you observe?
It picked from some 3 and it added another cell
Right.
too.
So if it's moving all the way downward, it means your selection is not locked. So it is moving downwards. What I want is I want you to give me the sum. that sum, it should remain the same whether I move to a different, I'm using the formula on a separate cell or not. Do you understand? And I'm only using it
Yes.
for cases where I want that selection to be in position. If I don't want the selection to be in position, I don't need to lock it. If I want it to be dynamic, that is, let it flow as I'm moving down the rows, then I don't need to lock it. But for your lookup functions, your selection arrays, they ought to be in position. All right. You want it to stay in that position you selected so it doesn't move out because you're searching, it's a search algorithm. So many times it doesn't follow a sequential order. All right.
Okay.
It doesn't follow sequential order. So it is searching everything in your selection to produce the result. So if you don't lock it and your selection have shifted, maybe what you're looking for is outside of your selection now because your selection was not locked. Right. So but see what happens when I decide to now lock this guy here, right? When I lock it, now if I replicate it all the way down, you see now that everything is the same value. Why?
Yes,
Because
yes.
the selection is locked regardless of the row that we have moved the formula to.
Okay,
All
sir,
right.
I
So
understand. Okay.
okay, cool. It comes in very handy whenever you want to ensure that something stays in position. You don't want it to move. Here, we did not lock A3 here. Why didn't we lock A3? Because as we move down the rows, this A3 will change. Observe what is here. That A3 is now A4. Abi? It's now A5. It's now A6. Why? Because it is now acting on what is here. But if I want a value, I want to use a specific value in a cell, I'm just going to lock that cell so it can stay in position. It doesn't move. All right. So what this does is it picks Toby Flenderson. It searches based on our locked cells. It searches everything here. The next is it picks Pam Beasley and it searches everything here. The next is it picks Meredith Palmer and searches everything here. That's how it continues to flow. All right. Is that taken, guys?
Yes.
Any thumbs up if we're
So,
good?
okay. Sorry, I have a
Yes,
quick question. Like, what was the
yes, please.
shortcut you used to lock it? Because I'm always entering my dollar sign manually.
Yeah, so the shortcut I said is F4. So, but you need to select them. All right, so see what I did.
Okay.
Let me show you here. So I say this equal to sum. Let me sum everything here. I want to lock these cells here, yeah? So you select those range or the cell. You don't have to select, it doesn't mean it has to be everything. It could just be only a particular cell that you want to lock. The first point is select them first. Okay. And
Okay.
then F4 on your keyboard. F4. For some of us
Okay.
like me, F4 will not work for you. You need to combine it with function. So there's a key on your keyboard that has Fn. It's somewhere close to where you have the control and alt key on your keyboard, right? You will see it either on the left side or on the right side. Where you have control alt, you will see Fn. Yeah. So you can combine Fn and F4 to give you that. That is if only F4 does not work for you.
Okay.
All right. Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question, guys? Any other question? So I mean, this is we have used this to touch what is on the next sheet here, which is about multiple rows. Okay. Here we've been able to cover, you will retrieve just one value. We've also been able to retrieve multiple values at the same time. Okay, multiple values at the same time. I was going to say that if you hover, now look at, observe, everyone, please look at my screen. Please ensure you're looking at my screen now. Ensure you're looking at my screen now. If you observe here, I am on my cell B3, right? That's where I entered my formula. Observe what is happening to the values that were retrieved on the gender, job title, salary, and email columns for this guy called Toby Flenderson, right? Observe what is happening. You will see like a blue or a dark blue boundary or borderline that is around those other values. Yeah. If I move inside on the gender side, look, if I move inside on the gender side, I am on the age. Look at my formula bar. You see it's highlighted, like it's well highlighted. Yeah. Then I move inside on the gender side. Look at my formula bar again. What can you see? You will see the formula, but it looks like see it's faded. All right. That is what you see when you use when you have this kind of result, you retrieve multiple results. So what you do after you have retrieved your result, good practice again as an analyst, good practice is once you're done with your result, once you're done with your formula, don't leave your work with formulas. All right. You want to distribute the files or the data or the sheet that you used in working. Don't leave them with the formulas. Only leave them with the values. It will help the document to load faster. It would help the document also even process faster. That is, it will reduce the size of the file. Okay. If you leave them with different, you see, you give me a file and I've seen different lookup functions that are linking up to other documents and all that. They would increase the file size and also even the speed at which that file will load eventually. So what do you do? Once you're done retrieving your values, select them. Here I'm only doing because there are few values we're working with here. That's why I can select everything. In most instances, you want to just do this and select all of this. What that does is select everything up to the very end of that column. Right? It is large, but it selects everything instead of having to do them one after the other. Or click on the first value, hold your shift and control key and press your down arrow key. It will select down to the very last, and then press your right arrow key. It will select to the very end of the row. All right. That's how you can also select everything quickly, regardless of how many rows that you have. So here I'm only interested in these guys here. I'll just Control C, and instead of doing Control V, by default, Control V will paste formulas if what you have copied has formulas. What do? I just right click and you will see under paste options, you will see this one that has 1, 2, 3. That is paste values. It is not going to paste the formula, it is going to paste the values only. And that's what we want to do. So click on that. It's just replace all the values, all the formulas there with the value. Now, if I click in there and look at the formula bar, you'll find out that it is giving me the values now, no longer the formulas. All right. And that's what you want to have at the end of the day. So again, once you're done with your function usage and all that, copy, paste values so that you replace the formulas. It helps your analysis process run faster. Any question? Any question? All right. So let's say, okay, or should I pause for a minute to allow us catch up for those of us who are still trying to catch up? Let me know. Let me know. I need feedback. So I know whether to proceed or to hold up. If you are with me, say uh-huh. If you need a minute, just say you need a minute. And if I don't see any response, I'll move on. Okay, cool.
Proceed, sir. Proceed.
All right, awesome. Okay, so let's say I've told us before, you can do an exact search or you can do an approximate search and all that. I gave us an instance before with Chris. I said I only know Chris, but what is in the table is Christopher. So maybe um, I only know I can search. So can you return something that at least to give me an idea? I'm searching. I want to find if this customer exists in my record. Okay. But I don't have all the details of the customer, or I don't even know how the customer is represented in my own table, in my customer table. So, but I have an idea that the customer name is Chris. I don't know whether that's the complete name or whether the customer has other names. As long as there's something we can use to work with, we can actually do a search based on that, and it will give us very interesting results. Now, let me see. Okay. So, excuse me. So here, what we're trying to do is look at, I mean, yeah, zoom in a bit. What we're trying to do is, so here we have this guy called Toby Flender. Toby Flender. Remember, on our table, what we have is Toby Flenderson, not Flender. If I search for the email address of Toby Flender with um, my normal way or method, all right, I say search from full name, return email address where you find it, all right. If the value is not found, give me an exact match. See what happens here. If I specify what happens if the value is not found, then it would use that instead. It says that this guy is not found. But however, I only know that this is Toby Flender, but it's most probably the same guy, Toby Flenderson, right, on my table. So how do I go about still retrieving this guy's record, even when I don't know the full name of this guy? So that introduces us to wildcards, wildcards, wildcards. Now, wildcards use the symbol here, we're using asterisks for the wildcard. What that does is um, we don't know the full name, all right, but we know part of the name. So use this part of the name and check with any other additions to the name and see whether you can find any similarity. Now, for your wildcards, you can either add them to the beginning of your lookup value or to the end of your lookup value or on both sides of your lookup value. This is what I mean. Chris and Christopher, right? The difference is in the end part of Chris. Is that not? So you have Chris. Topher is out of that Chris. Okay. So if I add a wildcard and I'm searching with a wildcard, I'll be searching for it based on or from the end of it because I know the beginning part of the name is correct. Yeah, but I don't know the full name. So you can use the beginning part of the name and add any other thing you see, that is add a wildcard to it. This is what I mean. For Toby Flenderson, for instance, A3 holds that name, Toby Flender. I'll add a wildcard and you just simply use ampersand. The ampersand is to join. Okay, you're joining the string. Remember when we did concatenate? So here in your lookup function, if you're using a wildcard, you use the ampersand to add a wildcard. Then I'll put the wildcard in a quote. So I'm using double quotes. What this means is take this full name and search. Even if it has other things after this name I've given you, also return that value. Because I've added this at the end now, I press enter. Now it still tells me that it is not found. Why? Because there are other specifications here. Remember here I said exact match. That is what I chose. This time around I'm using a wildcard. So I need to specify that I'm using a wildcard character match, which is 2 here. So I'm not using exact match, I'm using a wildcard match. So I press enter. So did you observe now that it retrieved the email for Toby Flenderson, even though the name we provided it was Toby Flender? Do you need assimilation on this? Or is it good? Reaction. 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 Okay. I need more reactions. I've seen just one. Just hold up. Don't type yet. Don't work yet. I'm going to give you your own time to do it. Just pay attention first. All right, pay attention. Yes, I'll go over it again. I'll use other instances so that you get what I'm trying to say. All right. So I said, so because I'm using some made up names here, let me use our names in this class so I can be a bit closer to us. All right, I'm going to add it to this part here. I see Stella, Amma. Please, let me see. Those who don't have their second names here, please help me drop the names, okay? Christopher. Please, I'm going to call you Christopher. I don't know whether Christopher is your full name, but I'm going to call you Christopher for the purpose of this example. What's your other name, sir?
Yes, please, Christopher.
Okay, cool.
Obina.
What's your other name? Huh?
Obina. Obina.
Obina. Okay, cool.
Yes, sir.
I see Dos. Maureen. Right? What's your other name, please?
Festus.
Okay, Festus. Festus. Somebody is adding another name to you. Oluwa Gbemisola. Gbemisola, please, what's your other name?
Adeniji.
Adeniji. Right. Oluwatosin Adasa. Adasa. Queen Adeshin. I'm acting as if I'm a Yoruba man so that I can pronounce it very well. Who else am I missing? Okay, I think that's all. Cool. Now, I am going to use this name instead. So let me create new column here and cut them here. All right. So I'll call you guys class names. So I'll say I'm gonna put random ages for all of you here, okay? I'll put random ages for everybody. It doesn't matter what your age is. So I'm just taking those ones on just a random stuff, yeah. All right. So this is what I want to do. So of this guy too. Or let me even do them somewhere else. Let me come here and do them somewhere else. Right. So that's what we have. And then this is what we have in our table, right? That is our database, or the table in our database. But this is what we are searching with. I know there's a name like Stella. I know Stella. I don't know her other name, but I know there's a Stella. I know there's a Dos. I know there is a Bemisola. All right. I'm going to do something with all of this. I know there is Adi. All right. So let me also split the names because I would also need to split them. All right. So I have your first name and last name here and your age. So I'm assuming these are first names, last names. Okay. The age. So I know there is a Stella, but I want full names. I want to know the full name. So this is what I do. I know the Stella, but on the full name column, I don't know the other name, so I want to retrieve everything. So I say X lookup. What's the lookup value? Stella. What's the lookup array? Search for these guys here. All right. What's the return array? It also return the same guy. I want just to return the first, the full names in this instance. So the return array and the lookup array are the same. So I selected both of them. If not found, just say my name not found. What do you want to do? Exact match. Boom. Of course, it's going to tell you name not found. And if you do that for all that, you're going to say name not found, all true. And why? Of course, you can't find any of these names with just this information. So now the wildcard. These are the names that I know. So I say, okay, check. Let's add a wildcard at the end. And let's see. I use the ampersand, open quote, asterisk, close quote. Just immediately after, before the comma, immediately after the search value. All right, the lookup value. Then I press enter. Okay, one more thing. I need to change the match mode from exact match to wildcard. And then I press enter. So this time around, it's now saying, yes, I see a stellar comma. Maybe that's what you want. If that's not what you want, you can also do further examination on it. And then when I roll it all the way down, you find out that, yes, he also found a DOS mooring as well from the table, right? And then maybe I should add Chris here because there's something I'm trying to illustrate. And then if I do this, and then it says, oops, Chris not found, right? Chris not found. Why is Chris not found? So, and why is Bemisola also not found? Why is also Ade not found? Why? Because these ones, they are part of a name. They are part of these full names here. So it won't see it here. That's the reason why I had to break it to first names here. If I use the first names instead, right? Say I replicate, or I should have locked this first. Right. I expected it to see it, but because I didn't lock it initially, that's why I didn't see Christopher. So it saw Chris, but he didn't see Ade. Why? Because he's looking out for the search value first, then additions to the search value. It saw Chris. Why? Because the search value, Chris, is the beginning of Christopher Obina. It did not find Bemisola because that is not the beginning of the value. We have Oluwa Bemisola. Okay. So let's say I changed this wildcard. Now I'm using this will give us clear examples. To the beginning part, you add the wildcard, then the ampersand before the lookup value. Okay. And I press enter. This time around, it won't find Stella. It will also not find DOS. It will not find Bemisola. neither will it find Ade. What I'm trying to say is that add everything from the beginning. Okay, add everything from the beginning, as long as what is at the end is Stella or Dos or Gbemisola or Ade or Chris, it will find those because there's nothing corresponding to this. But however, if I go back to, right, this is where we were. Now let's say we use the first name to search. Right, let's say we use the first name to search. And I replicate this formula here. So this formula is searching for S2. All right. Search for S2 from Y. Okay. We're using Y to search, and let's return the name it finds. Okay, and then press enter. Right. Of course, to find Stella, Stella is there complete the way it is. And then when we replicate it down, right, it will find um it will find Chris, it will find Dos, of course, it will find Ade and Gbemisola. You may expect it to find Gbemisola because Gbemisola is here. But we have said the wild card is after your lookup value. So for only Gbemisola, if I change the direction now, just to show you guys something. If I change the direction of, sorry, it's supposed to be inside here. If I change the direction of this and I press enter, now we found Oluwagbemisola. Why? Because the wild card is now in front of your lookup value, not at the end of your lookup value. All right. I will also not find Ade because it is if I use the last name, right? So let's say I change this one here. I change this one here to the last name column. That is Z. All right. That's when I can see. Now I see Adeniji. There is Adesinu here. There is Adeniji. Okay. But what did it do? It will return the first one that it finds. Returns the first one that it finds. It won't tell you that there are multiple days or multiple values with days. It doesn't have that functionality to give you that information. It will always return the first value that it finds. Let's say this is not Adeniji. Let's say this is Adoniji. Then this time around, instead of Adeniji, it now returns Adeshinu, right? Because it's no longer Ade. It moves on to look for others. Please let me know if this wildcard thing is clear enough with this. Is it better? Or did I get you more
No,
confused?
it's clear, sir.
Okay, cool. So sometimes you are posed with, and again, please, little by little, yeah. When we do the exercises, we'll see what all these things I'm saying. So you want to carry out an analysis, you're preparing your data and stuff, right? And you're searching for stuff. They don't have the same name, they don't have the same arrangement, you understand. You have to do one or two transformations, and these are the functions that you would use to do those transformations to prepare your data for further analysis. Okay? All right. So the search order, remember what I showed us before, that apart from the match criteria, where is it? Okay. Okay. Apart from the search criteria here, right, that's the match mode, there is also a search mode, right? Remember I said in our other example where it returned Adeniji because it found that one first. So it means it is moving from first to last by default. If I want you to search from last to first, let me even do that so that we could see the real result here. Where is that? Okay, cool. Here. I change this back to Ade. You see that the result here, let me highlight it. The result here is Adeniji. Why? It is starting from first to last. What is first? From top to down. Okay? That's by default, this formula. Because I didn't specify, so by default, it does first to last. So if I say now, do last to first, which is -1. -1 is a number that specifies do last to first. What will happen this time around? Did you observe that even though this did not change, it now said Ade, the value you found here is Adeshin. Why this time around it's now starting from the bottom to search all the way up. It will return the first one it finds. Are we good? Are we okay? So that's like the search order. So say you want to search from, bottom up and all that. You can always do that. Sometimes you can do this, just do a quick check to find out if you have multiple values of that same expression you're looking for. How can we enter formula to find all the information at once without editing one? Unfortunately, Bemisola, if I understand your question correctly, your question is to write a formula once so that it can give you, or you know what, Bemisola, come on the mic and explain. I don't think I understand it clearly. Let me understand what you mean.
Okay, this is what I was asking. Like, when you were looking for Gbemisola, you were looking for Ade. So
Mm-hmm.
later you had to come back to where Gbemisola is, where it's not found, and start editing it to check if you will find one. And again, when you got to Ade, it was just giving you just one Adeniji. It didn't give you
Mm-hmm.
the next one that there are multiple Ades. So now in the
Mm.
case of plenty data, like you said, how can I just write one and it should just give me everything at once? So I don't need to edit the
Okay.
ones that are not found.
Okay. That's not a formula you are looking for anymore. What you just simply do is just do Control F, which is to find. All right. So I'm doing a Control F now.
No, no, that's not what I mean. Like,
Okay. What do you?
the way you did the Stella, names, and you were trying to look for
Yes.
their full names.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what I'm looking like. So I'm looking for all the full names at once so it can enter everything, even if the spelling or anything is not right or is not complete. How will it give me everything at once?
Okay. I get what you mean now. Okay. I see what you mean. Okay. But before I answer that, I had forgotten to mention one thing here, which is that this wildcard can also be both at the beginning and at the end. All right. So maybe um I'll use Bemi Sola here to make that explanation. This is what I mean. Here. So instead of Bemi Sola, I'll change it to Bemi. Now, do you observe that it is no longer found? Let me use a different coloring. It is no longer found here, yeah? Why? Because we said from the beginning, put the wildcard, and then as long as the ending is only Bemi, give us the result. It doesn't find that. So if I add another wildcard to the end, right, you will find out that yes, it goes ahead. So Bemi is in between some other things that I don't know, and after that is also some other things that I don't know, as long as there is something that speaks to that in there. What you have asked for would be more like instead of doing an exact match, what you'll be looking for is an approximate match. If the spellings are not correct, if the orderings are not correct, and all that, what you'll be doing will be not an exact match. You'll be doing an approximate match. All right. Let me see. For Christopher, for instance, here. Okay, let me just copy everything here so I don't have to. Yeah. So no wildcard here. I want to search for his full name. I only know Chris, right? And don't give me an exact match. Give me exact match or the next smaller item. I would use this other one or the next larger item because Chris is the smaller item. I expect any other item to be, more than that. Did you see that? It still returned Christopher Obina. All right. This is the only
Yes,
thing I
I
know
see
in here,
that.
right? So maybe there's a spelling error in there. Did you observe that there's a spelling error here, but it still returned Christopher Obina? Yeah,
Yes,
let me so that
yes,
does that work?
yes, it worked.
All right. So not an exact match. You're using something in XLOOKUP. You have those other match criteria that we say exact match or next smaller item, exact match or next larger item, right? But in VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP, you would have exact match or approximate match, right? Either of the two would also give you something similar.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Welcome. So you can use the wildcard for both the beginning and the end. So for me, most times I will always advise use the wildcard for the beginning and the end. If there's nothing at the beginning, you're also safe. If there are things, you're fine as well. So use the wildcard at the beginning and the end of your lookup value. It will cover up all these other options. But if you're very sure that I only need I know the beginning part, I don't know the other parts, then you can put the wildcard at the end. If you are sure that I know the ending part, I don't know the beginning part, then put the wild card at the beginning. Yep. Is that okay? Okay. So the exercise I'm going to give you guys from this work is on this sheet here. This sheet that is here, XLOOKUP with sum. All right. There's another sheet in this file that we're working with. XLOOKUP with sum. XLOOKUP with sum. The data here shows the sales of three products. Please pay careful attention. Maureen, also please take note of it so that you can articulate it better on the chart so everybody knows the expectation. All right. The data here shows three products: paper, printer, and manila folder. Paper, printer, and manila folder. Now, January till December, the numbers there are the sales for all of those products from January till December. The sales, that is total number of papers sold, printers sold, manila folder sold. Do you understand? Now, the questions, I will give us 3 just to work with, or 4, just 4. It's simple. 4. If I say Q1 means January till March, right? That's the first 3 months. That's Q1. Is it first 3 months? Yes. That's Q1, right? The next 3 months is Q2, right? The next 3 months is Q3. The last 3 months is Q4. Okay, just to explain. So what I'm trying to find out is, number 1, what are the total number of sales for paper in Q1? That's question 1. Question 2, is it what are or what is? What is the total number of sales for paper in Q1? What is the total number of printer in Q2? In Q2, that's number 2. Number 3, what is the total number of Sorry. Number 3, what is the total number of sales for Manila folder in Q3? All right. And question 4, what is the total number of sales for what is the total number of sales for all products in Q4? For all products in Q4. That is the sum of everything here. That will give you that last answer. I'm giving you a hint. All right. So just to just to give you a hint, all right, to demonstrate what I mean, I'm going to find the the sum, the sum of sales, that is the total sales for paper for January and February. Okay, January and February. And this is okay, let me just do it here. So we say equal to, we are looking for sum. So we'll do sum. What is the first number? This is our interest. Again, you can easily just come here and pick them manually, but that's not what we want to do. We want to use X lookup to do that. Okay. What is the first number? Then we'll do an X lookup. What is the lookup value? Paper. Where are we looking up for it? Where's the array? This guy. What are we returning? We are returning sorry. Yeah. We are returning, okay. Yes. Then we're returning where it finds here. That's the first one. And if not found, 0. If it is not found, it is 0, right? Then do an exact match. Then I close this bracket. I would have retrieved the first thing. I would have retrieved the first value. All right, that will be for January. Then the next one, I do another X lookup. What is the lookup value? I'm looking for paper. Where am I looking for paper from? I'm looking for paper from this array here. And what am I returning? Here in February. Then if it is not found, it is 0. The exact match as well. Then I'll close this. Then I close the sum bracket. And then I press enter. What this does is it will automatically look for paper in this array. Where it finds paper, it will bring this value here, okay, which is the January, and look for the same one in February and add both of them. If you manually add them, you find out that this is 760, and that is what you get here at your result. All right, so this is January to February, and that gives you 764 paper. I'm just giving you a hint on what to do to get the results for all of these questions here. So you're combining sum with X lookup. All right, that's your exercise for this class. That's your exercise for this class. I would have said I would pause and give you 5 minutes to do it and give me your results, but because of time, I want to move on to pivot tables. I want to move on to pivot tables today. So that means that we may not be able to do dashboards today, but we can take that in our next class. Is that okay? Give me a thumbs up if we're good, or let me know if we're good to proceed. Okay. So maybe I should just copy these questions and drop it here on the chat as well. Let's see. All right. These are the questions we're working on. Okay, just give me your results and then give me your formulas that you used to obtain your results as well. Okay. Let me see what's the next document for that. I want us to do some pivot tables. So I'm trying to get the document. I'm going to drop a document now on the chart. I'll drop a document on the chart. Please download it. If you had accessed the folder I shared with you from the beginning, it's also in that folder. All right, this is a sales data. Now, I also obtained this data from cable.com. All right, it's also public data. The sample data sets share that screen. One of the data sets that we're going to be working with. From the next time when we meet, some of the exercises I'll be giving you, you will be the one to source for the data yourself. I'll only show you where you source for this data. You go there and retrieve the data by yourself. Okay? So that you start getting used to how you work with external data. So this is the data. Let me know if you have downloaded and powered it up. Let me know if you have downloaded and powered it up. I have 2 minutes quickly. Download and load this data set. And I'll first use this opportunity to summarize some of the things we've been talking about to this point before I introduce the next phase of what we are discussing. Let me know once you've done that. So please let me know that we can proceed. Right, Gbemi Solar has downloaded. Please load up the file as well. Load up the file. In another 30 seconds, I'll proceed. Right, I have one confirmation. Who else? Interestingly, how many males do I think I have just 2 males in this class, Chris and Kylie. And then I have 4 or 5 females in this class. I think I like the idea that I have more females in this class than I have males. I think my other class, I had more males than I had females. It's good. It's good dynamics. Well done, Maureen. I see you. Women advocates. We proceed. Can we proceed? Memisola says we can proceed. I know. Who else? Hadassah, Tosin, Toyin, Kyle, De Chris. What's up? Can we proceed, Stella? Okay, all right, so we can proceed. The first thing, remember. This is the data set you're looking at is a typical cleaned and ready to use for analysis data set. Okay, it has been cleaned. That's where you can see it's very organized. This is not what you are going to see in the workplace, but this is what you will produce in a workplace where you have a very clean data like this. Let's take note. Chris, come on the mic.
Yes,
I'm calling
please.
on Chris. Something I need to remind you. Remember when you said we can do copy, paste, right, on that stuff, and I said you can work with large volumes of data and it is very cumbersome. Yeah.
Yes, please. Yes, sir.
Look at my screen. Look at where I'm pointing. How many records can you see here?
Wow, this 113 million,
113,000
113,070 and 37.
and 37.
Yes, sir.
This is a sales record over a period, and it contains
Wow.
113,037 records. So you would never, ever in your analytical journey be doing anything manual, right? You have to combine these functions to get what you want to do. Okay. So remember when I said the first thing you do once you obtain your data, okay, the first thing you do once you obtain your data, make a duplicate of your data so that you can have the raw file and the file that you're going to be working with. So if for any reason you need to make reference to the original file, you still have access to it. All right, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to duplicate this sheet. And I right click on the tab name here, where you see sales on the tab name, you will see move or copy. So I click on that and I'll just say select move to the end and I'll check this box for create a copy and I'll click OK. Automatically it will create a copy for me. I can go on here and rename this one to raw so that I will know. Either I call it raw or I call it original data, right? And then you can call this one whatever you choose to call it. I can just call it my working data. So I have a sales working data. I have a copy of my original data. So I can always make
Stanley,
reference.
sorry for disturbing. I don't know. I
Mhm.
couldn't. I can't open it. I don't know if others were able to open theirs.
Can't open.
Yes.
What does that mean? When you try to open, what does
It
it say?
doesn't. No, the file does not. It doesn't even open at all. It's not even saying anything. I
You've
don't know if
downloaded the file.
anyone was able to open it. Sorry, I've done that. I've downloaded it. I've saved it.
Okay, let me pause here. Share your screen quickly. Okay, so I said you make a duplicate of this, yeah? So you have the original copy and the copy you're working with. All the time, never forget this, okay? Never you forget this. Even in your workplace, never forget this. But always keep a copy of your original file as you're working on the file. Now, the next thing you do when you're doing your data cleaning, remember your data cleaning process. You want to check for duplicates, you want to check for missing entries. You want to check for outliers, right? You want to check for wrong formats and all that. We will not see all of those here because this is already a we will not see all of those here because this is already a well formatted or cleaned data. We will have an exercise for data cleaning and we will use an unclean data to clean up our stuff. So we'll see how we can work to clean duplicates, to check for missing entries, all right, to remove unwanted columns, to format columns to the appropriate format for their particular data. If it is a date data, let it be displaying as a date. If it is numbers, let it display as numbers. If there are numbers that are supposed to have fractional parts, they will have the fractional part, all of those things that we need to make, whatever the right format for each of them. I'm just going to do that cleaning. But for now, I'm just going to use very briefly, just to introduce pivot tables so that we can continue on that our next session. All right. So pivot tables helps you to draw out intelligence or insights from your data. As this data is, you may not make so much sense of it. It is clean and well prepared, but you may not make so much sense with it. The next thing you want to start drawing out, say for instance, this is just to give us an introduction. Most times, whenever I ask you to go and retrieve data, there will be something there called the data description. That data description describes what that data is about, what that data contains, and all these basic information about the data for your own knowledge, so that once you retrieve the data, you know what you are dealing with or what you are working with. All right. So here, this is a sales record for a business, and this business they sell bikes and bike accessories. All right, they sell bikes and bike accessories. Now, you would find out that there is a date for this particular each record. There is the day, there is the month, and there is the year. These, I mean, they were all date, month, and year were all extracted from this date. Okay. Um, you would not see this in the normal data. You might see this. So from this, you're able to get these three. Okay. When we do data cleaning, we'll see that. There's the age of the customer. You would also most probably not see the age group of the customers. You are the one that is going to also include the age group for the customers. We'll see all of this. Then there's the gender, the country, right? The state, the product category, the subcategory, and the product itself. Then the quantity of the order, the unit cost, right? The unit price, the profit made, the cost to the business, and the revenue. Of course, profit is supposed to be revenue minus the cost. That's supposed to be the profit. And if you check this, you'll find out that that's what is happening here. The unit price for each of these products, the unit cost, that is how much it costs the business to produce or manufacture or even to source for that product. All right, that is what that is. And then the quantity the customer ordered for. These are the information that you have here. So you want to build the insight. Say, for instance, which product category. All right, I will do something here. And what I'm about to do is I go to data, and I click on this filter here. Why? Because I want to be able to see, um, summarize or aggregate information for each column. It brings up this filter for each of these columns here. So you go to data on your menu bar and you see filter right under sort and filter. Just click on it. Or you use the keyboard shortcut Control Shift and L. Control Shift L. Control Shift L. It will give you the same result. So I want to look at how many categories do we have here. There are accessories, there are bikes, and there are clothing. So you may want to find out what are their various revenues, okay, for accessories, bikes, for the various categories, product categories. What country? Look at the country. How many countries do we have here? There are a number of countries here, right? What are the sales, across several countries? Right? Based on maybe product categories and all of that. And then which gender, what's the overall revenue generated per gender? So do we have more males purchasing our product or females? Or you may even do it for the product category. Maybe the females purchase more of certain categories than the males, something like that. Those are insights that you are bringing from your data already. Now, how do you draw out all of these insights? Your pivot table is very important at this point. So how do you insert a pivot table? Right here on your data, first thing to take note of is that ensure that you are within the table. That is within just a cell within the table. All right. Don't select anything. Just ensure that your cursor or your selected cell is within the table. This is what I mean. If I come here, I'm outside of the data table. All right, it's going to give me a different result altogether. But just ensure you're within the table. Anywhere within the table is fine. Then I go to insert on my menu bar. Insert on my menu bar. So from there, you will see the very first item that you see on the left-hand side is pivot table. pivot table, or you call it pivot table, right? If I click on that pivot table, by default, so let me hold up first. There's an arrow pointing down for more options. Here, you can, from a table range, from an external data source, or from a Power BI, source, or from there's other options. We're not interested in those options right now. There's another one here that says recommended pivot table. So sometimes you may not even have an idea of what kind of insights you can generate from your data. If you show these recommended pivot tables, it just automatically gives you some information that you can actually look at. So here you can see sum of profit by country, sum of revenue by state, sum of profit by age group, sum of unit price, sum profit, and some of them by country. Some of them may not make sense, all right, but it's just giving you an idea. So you can use that as a start point to think of some things to do. But ordinarily, we're not going to do that. We're just going to create our own pivot table from scratch. So we'll just click on that. One of the things you will observe is that it brings up this dialog box, the table range. The table range by default to select your entire table. That's why I said stay within that table data. It will select your entire table data. All right. If you observe, you would see some dotted boundaries, some green dotted boundaries already that is surrounding your table. That is showing you the areas that selected. That is, this data will be visible in your pivot table. Okay. Then the next thing is you want to select where your pivot table would display. Mostly by default is on a new worksheet. That is, it will create a new worksheet where you want it to work, where you want to work on. Or you can do an existing worksheet. I can even create a pivot table right here. So once I go there, select existing worksheet, under the location bar, I can just click on this. What happens is that it will just create a pivot table here, right here on this sheet. But what we want to do is create it on a new worksheet. And I say, okay. Then it brings you to the new worksheet it has created with what you see on the screen. All right. What you see on the screen. So for this part, I need you to just listen in. Just listen in. After now, you can try to study more on it, but I will go extensively the next time when we meet. Okay, because of time. I'll go extensively the next time when we meet, but just try as much as you can to listen in to this part. So I said earlier, this is the first thing you see here. If you look at now your menu bar, you would have observed that there is a new menu that was not there ordinarily before you created your pivot table. You will see a pivot table analyze menu, all right? And you will see a design menu as well. These two will pop up once you create a pivot table. Now, if I click outside of this, still within this sheet here, but outside of this pivot table here, I'm clicking outside here, you will find out that those menus are no longer there. But once I click inside this pivot table, all these fields pop up automatically. If your pivot on the right side here, your pivot table fields wizard does not open up or is not activated when you pop up, what's it called? When you create your pivot table, all right, what you can do is in here, check under pivot table analyze, ensure that here field list is checked. If it is not checked like this, you won't see it, even if you're in the pivot table environment. But ensure that this is checked here. Okay, these buttons, they are not important now until we see pivot charts. We'll see what those buttons are for, and as well as field headers. They are not important right now until later. All right, there are other things here, but as we progress, I'm going to introduce us to more of them. The next thing I want us to take note of is you will see in here, all right, it's telling you this pivot table 2 is the name given to this pivot table by default. That is the name given to the pivot table by default. You can change this name to something that speaks to your pivot table, so you are able to just name your pivot table. Most times it's not very, very important, but it's just a nice to have skill set. So I click on this pivot table right here, ensure If I'm on home tab, I will not see that. Ensure that you are on pivot analyze, pivot table analyze, right? Let me hide this guy. Okay. Ensure you're on pivot table analyze. That is when you would see some of these things here. So under pivot table, click on that. You will see here pivot table name. In here, I can go ahead and change it to whatever I want. So I can just call it sales insights. All right. I can call it sales insights. And take note, please, there is no space in between the table name. So I'm starting a new word with a capital letter, or you use an underscore for it, but no space in between the table name. All right. There are other options that you can also explore, but for now, they are not important. Right. So you would observe here that the name table name, a pivot table name here has also changed to sales insights. Okay. So I'll just draw up few insights from our record and then we'll call it a day. We want to see from which country. You see all the fields, all the column names that you have in your data. This is your data. Okay. This is your data. All these column names here, because when we're creating the the pivot table, remember the table range that was selected. It selected everything. That is why. So if it is not selected, you won't find them there. All these column names here, right? All these column names, you can find them here. They are all listed here. Everything listed here. So I want to find revenue made for each category, each product category for each country. Okay, and this is how I will do that. I will look for the country. Where is the country? Da 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 da. Country, yeah. So we have country. I'll click and drag it down to where you see rows here. Right? You see all these fields, filter, columns, rows, and values. I'll drag it here and then I'll release my mouse. What that does is automatically it has populated my pivot table with all the countries that are present in my data. All countries present in my data are now represented here. The next thing I want to do is what's the revenue? So I go to the revenue column. I drag revenue, I bring revenue to the values field here and I drop it. So it is going to produce all the revenue from each country throughout my entire spread. Chris, remember, we had 113,037 records in there. You will not be doing this manually. All right. This time around, it has gone round your entire 113,000 records. Everywhere where the revenue was made for each of these countries, it has summed them up. Remember when we were doing sum if, some ifs. We can use those sum ifs to do the same thing here and we will get the result. But sincerely, your pivot table is more dynamic, faster, and even more efficient to use. All right. Those other formulas, they help us with other tasks, not things like this. All right. They can do these things, but as a laborious work. Okay. So say for instance, I now said we want to find out the revenue made for each product category. So we go to the product category and I'll drag the product category, I will drop it here on the column side. So it now added all the columns, accessories, bikes, clothing. These are the countries on the rows. These are the product categories on the columns, right? And the values here are the revenue that was made, or that has been made for each of them. All right. So if I just change the format, just added the comma in there to get this. So you will see. So say for instance, if you want to change the currency, you know how to change currencies. For now, I'm just going to use dollars. So you will see the actual, money value in there. This is the revenue generated for each country. So maybe I want to sort this in, ascending order. I want to see the country, the first country and below. I come here under row labels here. All right. I will sort I'll just click on that arrow. You will see more sort options. More sort options. I click on it, and then I see descending order. And then you will see you can select by country, but we want to do by revenue, sum of revenue. So descending order of sum of revenue, and I'll click OK. Now it tells you that the United States is, the country where we made the highest revenue, Australia, United Kingdom, and below. We can do this for the gender, we can do this for the age grade, we can do this for what? We can do it for the states, we can even check for their profits, we can check on which year we had more sales, we can do a lot, bring out a lot of insight from just this data. All right, this is just the basic introduction to what pivot tables are. I'm going to pause here. I know I've said a lot in such a short time, but I'm introducing it. This is what I would advise you to do. Read up on this concept of pivot tables and as well, on charts, so that when we come next time, we'll flow together, all right, around it. It's getting more interesting as we progress, okay? But take note of the exercise I gave you guys for today. That exercise is very important. Okay, do we have any final questions before we call it a day for today? Final questions. And honestly speaking, this is not the exercise I give and you won't think of doing it. I'm not very happy when I give exercise and you don't even attempt it. I appreciate those who attempted the last one I gave, right? And I don't want you to come back to me and tell me you can't do it. Maybe you can't do it, that's true, but it's an opportunity to learn something, right? Just go on Google. How do I do ta? You will see tons of options. These days you have ChatGPT and all that. I am trying to do this. Just give it a prompt or two, and you will see results. And then you will learn from that result, apply it, and you will see the outcome. And you would have gotten knowledge that will last with you forever. All right. Any question? I'm going to stop recording now so that you can start processing. Once it's done